Hello. I've just been racing on my bicycle. Here is the beautiful sky of today's morning, and I'm going to go to the place where I want to read my work. I've written something which is totally obvious, something which is something that most people would probably consider to be totally useless to write it or to say it, but I do. Good morning. And I say it and I write it because I find it so important to say it and to write it, even though everyone could say it, everyone could write it, everyone could say, why are you even saying that? Why are you even writing that? Well, it is because I can and because I want to, and because I enjoy to say it and to write it. So in the same way I enjoy this beautiful sky, when I got here, I started racing my bicycle because I wanted to get this picture of this colored clouds. It only occurs at this very moment, when at this time you're here, you get to see this, and if you go 5 minutes later, it's gone. So that's why I had to race to get here in time, because you will probably see as I'm recording this that the sky will turn not so colorful while I'm talking with you, because that is the sun which is beautifully shining on the bottom of the clouds. And okay, here I'm going to walk because this is a path that I need to be very careful. And here we go. Here, and you can already see how it is changing. It changes so quickly. Okay, here we go. Now go here. These nice steps. Oops. Oh, okay. This is a perfect spot for me to read my work. I always like to come here in the early morning. And as you can see, these rocks have broken off here from the edge. So you don't want that to happen while you happen to be standing right here, because then you will be falling down. So I'm gonna park my bicycle over here. See if I can get into the creek bed here. And let's see. Yeah, it is possible. I can do it. It is just a small. Here we go. Not too difficult. Here we go. So this is a nice place here for today. So let me see. course I didn't bring a napkin. No, I did not. Okay, well, gotta sniff my nose here. Okay. Here is my text of today. And I brought my glasses so I can read what I've written. And it's not anything important, it's not anything world shocking. But I like it anyway. Because in embodied language, first I need to tell you, what is embodied language? Well, embodied language is the way of talking which changes how you deal with language. Once you have embodied language in which you listen to yourself while you speak, you realize that language is not inside of you. Language is not occurring inside of you as your mind or as your thought. No, there's no such thing. Your mind or your thought is just a fantasy. Yeah, that is quite something you wouldn't like to hear. But I know it is a fantasy which occurs because you have been using your language incorrectly. Yeah. And as long as you believe that there's inner language, you use your language incorrectly. The correct use of your language is to adhere to the overt nature of language. Language is always spoken. That's why you can hear it. It's written. And that's why you can read it. Here, that's my writing. I have it right here. So, language is not inside of me. These words, they are not anywhere to be found inside of me. As my mind, my conversation inside my head with myself, my internal dialogue, doesn't exist. Thinking about this and that, no. There is no language in my brain. That's only the way we talk. And we only know about that so-called thinking because we talk. So instead of talking about thinking, we should be talking about talking. And that's exactly what embodied language is. In embodied language, we begin to adhere to the overt nature of language. And that is when we finally get into the driving seat of our language. That's what embodied language is all about. But that's not what this writing is all about, because this writing is just so simple that you don't even want to hear it. But anyway, in our usual way of talking, in our usual way of dealing with language, because our talking determines how we deal with language, in our usual way of talking, we do not listen to ourselves, and ooh, that's a big mosquito here. I do not like the mosquitoes, so I keep on walking. Because these mosquitoes, otherwise they land on me. And I don't want that to happen. So in a usual way of talking, we don't listen to ourselves while we speak. We try to listen to others. We try to make other people listen to us, but we are not listening to ourselves. And then we inadvertently imagine that there is inner language. Yeah, we inadvertently imagine that the things we couldn't say, the things we didn't say, the things we were not allowed to say, we didn't dare to say, that is inner language, that is our mind. No, there's no such thing. Okay, I keep walking. You see the sky is the sky still red? No, the sky has changed. Okay, in embodied language you can say and write what you want to say and write, and what you are capable to say and to write. You are capable of saying it. You're capable of writing it, because your embodied language, speaking with yourself and listening to yourself, has made that possible. So you're just saying or writing the obvious. Yeah. You say it first and you write it later. And this is the order of operations. Yeah. And that is also the order of operations. So you say it first and then you write it. That is what stabilizes, that is what continues, and that is what broadens your embodied language. to include every aspect of your life. Stated differently, embodied language affects all the other behaviors because it is your correct use of language. With your embodied language, you describe your individually lived experience correctly. The obvious incorrect use of language, disembodied language, in which you do not listen to yourself while you speak, you keep listening to others, you keep trying to make other people listen to you, but you're not listening to yourself. So the obvious incorrect way of using language, it leaves many areas of your behavior completely untouched, unexplored, unknown, inaccessible. Yes, your language gives you access to your experience. Obviously, and I keep using that word just to make a point here. Obviously, turn the page here. Sorry. Obviously, this has nothing to do with being unconscious, that you have no access, that it remains unexplored, has nothing to do with being unconscious, because such an explanation is circular. Yes, why are you unconscious? Well, it is because of how you use your language. But why do you use your language incorrectly? Well, it's because you're unconscious. Yes, that's how that goes. So these terms, unconscious or conscious, or what we nowadays call mindfulness, these terms, these concepts, whatever you call it, they're totally useless since they refer to the illusion of inner language. Embodied language adheres to the overt nature of language, which means there are no longer any references to the illusion of inner language, to what we imagine to be thinking before we're speaking or writing, to our so-called mind. No. There is, there was, and there will never be any language inside of us. Embodied language allows us to say and write the obvious. But the obvious is continuously pushed aside by our history of conditioning with disembodied language. For instance, a person may be, let's say, very depressed. And then they imagine to have negative thoughts. And then the therapist or the psychologist supposedly helps this person to have positive thoughts about him or herself. However, there are no thoughts, there is no mind, there exists no inner voice, and there is nothing to hear inside. Yeah. So, going back to the need to say it before you write it with disembodied language, we keep having the order of operations upside down. Even in modern therapy, patients are now filling out worksheets in the and they are listening to videos or they're reading articles or books in the false belief that these activities, will enhance their understanding. But understanding is not something inner. It is the actual act of speaking and listening simultaneously. Yeah, so now you know. Yeah. The act of speaking and listening simultaneously. So what I'm doing, Thus, reading what someone has written requires your eyes to stay on the page where the sentences are written. And this looking at these symbols, here, this is what I'm doing right now, that is the understanding. In other words, you can't read without looking at the words. And what goes on in your brain is simply neural activity that makes this so-called reading possible, but there are never any words to be found anywhere in your brain. They always stay on the paper, and they're only there as long as someone speaks. Yeah, the moment I stop talking, there's no language. And then you hear an airplane coming over. This is this is obvious as we ourselves are in charge of our language and we use our language correctly. By first saying whatever we want to say so that we can hear it. Yeah, we need to say it to be able to hear it. Without saying it, there's nothing here. As opposed to being mindful and to imagine that we are saying it inside ourselves, inside our head. Yeah. So what we are saying and only writing about this process, which is of course, what we're saying and writing about this process of talking out loud with ourselves and listening to ourselves, is of course very different from what we do in disembodied language, where we erroneously imagine that the written language can change the spoken language. This is a huge fallacy. Written language cannot and does not change spoken language. No. It never did and it never will, because speaking and listening require different contingencies than writing and reading. Moreover, what was written and what was read makes only sense to the extent that it was spoken and that it was heard. Yes. Nobody with disembodied language would ever write this, what I've written here. They wouldn't bother to write all this down because they have never said it. Even if they have attempted to say it, because everybody tries to, but they fail, they are trying to address this in vain. Even if they have attempted to say it, they gave up on it because they said it in such a way that they didn't like to hear it. Yes, that's why you give up. As long as you speak with a sound you don't want to hear, you're checking out. And you give up on what you're actually able to say, but you're not saying it because you're not saying it in such a way that you like to hear it. So they've given up on it because they said it in a way they didn't like to hear it. And the obvious can always be said out loud to yourself, however, only if it is said in such a way that we like to hear it. And it will then have its effect on us, because then, when we like to hear it, then, only then, are we going to act on it. Yeah. And that means that our language has worked correctly. As long as we are not listening, for whatever reason, to ourselves while we speak, our language disconnects us from all our other behavior. Basically, our language is a dissociative activity because it inaccurately describes our individually lived experience.